Chapter 1635. As she said that, Bailan glared fiercely at Snake. Snake really felt like he could not defend himself even with 100 mouths. Feeling wronged by Bailan's glare, he leaped up angrily, but could not do anything to this woman. Gu Mingming cared about her, very very much. She did not say anything and just called out, Bailan, before her tears flowed uncontrollably. Snake did not doubt that if he dared to touch a single strand of Bailan's hair today, Gu Mingming would drown him with her tears. Gu Mingming cried even more fiercely as she hugged Bailan tightly, choking with sobs. I miss you so much, I'll go. Bailan quivered. She grabbed Gu Mingming's shoulders and pulled her away. Glancing at her tearful little face, she hugged her harshly back into her arms. She said in an especially manly manner, All right, I'll satisfy you. Go back to the dormitory to sleep tonight. If you can get off the bed tomorrow, it'll be my loss. Actually, girls would occasionally crack such jokes among themselves, but most of the time it was in private, when there were no boys around. Other than Bailan, there was probably no other girl in this world who dared to say something like that in front of everyone. Gu Mingming was tickled by Bailan's words. She punched Bailan lightly and sniffled. If I occupy you, what will happen to Zhang Jincheng? Bailan laughed heartily and said, Both of us have become lesbians, then let him go and be gay with Snake. Wife-swapping games, it's quite exciting just thinking about it. Haha. Gu Mingming was someone who had lived for more than 1,000 years, but she still could not withstand Bailan's charms. Pinching Bailan, Gu Mingming was just about to scold her for not being serious when her waist tightened. Gu Mingming was suddenly pulled from behind and fell into a chest. Turning back, she met Gregory's cold and calm eyes. He was looking at Bailan with an extremely unfriendly gaze. His brows were slightly furrowed. As if he was sizing up whether Bailan was male or female, Gu Mingming was stunned. She then remembered that Gregory came from the beast world. This was his first time interacting with a modern person. He would definitely not be able to adapt to Bailan's heavy-taste jokes. She wanted to explain but could not find the right words, so she could only turn to Snake for help. But the moment she saw Snake's face fine, because of Bailan's wife-swapping joke, this old man's face was about to freeze, so he obviously wouldn't help. Gu Mingming's current position was a little awkward, because the way Gregory carried her was the same way Elvis carried her in the beast world, supporting his buttocks with one arm, as if he was carrying a child. This was very normal in the beast world, but in the modern world, basically no boyfriend had ever hugged his girlfriend like this. Especially since in everyone's eyes, Snake was Gu Mingming's boyfriend, while Gregory was just a bodyguard. Bailan's expression was also unfriendly. She had already noticed Gregory just now, but Gu Mingming cried the moment she saw him, so she did not have the time to ask. Now even her real boyfriend didn't dare to snatch him from her hands, but a hothead who popped out of nowhere dared to snatch him from her hands. Chapter 1636. Gu Mingming patted Gregory's shoulder and said, Put me down first. Gregory's brows were still furrowed, and he was obviously on guard against Bailan. Gregory. Gu Mingming frowned and her gaze was filled with urgency. Her eyes were still red from crying and Gregory naturally could not bear to make her angry again. So he placed her on the ground but kept his arms around her shoulders, and did not allow her to walk over to Bailan. Gu Mingming had no choice but to say to Gregory, This is Bailan, a very important friend to me. Just as important as Sandy. Understand? Gu Mingming purposely emphasized on the word very important, and even used Sandy as an example. Although Gregory was still frowning, he had retracted his cold aura, and just nodded as a form of greeting. Gu Mingming knew that Gregory would at least not lay a hand on Bailan, and heaved a sigh of relief. She turned to look at Bailan and said, He is Gregory, he is my. Gu Mingming suddenly bit her own tongue. How should she introduce him? This is my guardian beast, the kind that can die for me but cannot enter my bed. Gu Mingming already felt awkward introducing guardian beasts in the beast world, and now that she was in the present world, she could not bring herself to say it. Pursuer. Snake gave Gu Mingming a simple reminder, and gave her a suitable phrase. Gu Mingming looked at Snake gratefully as if she had just been pardoned and said, Yes, pursuer. F*ck. Bai Lan's eyes widened, and she wrapped her arms around Gu Mingming's to pull her to her side. If she were to grab a handful of melon seeds and munch on them, she would be a modern gossipy woman. Bai Lan nudged Gu Mingming with her shoulder and said, how did you do it? You made these two love rivals coexist peacefully, and even work together to fight against outsiders? But girl, your taste is not good. How can you find one who looks like a mute, and another who still looks like a mute? Gu Mingming could not explain to Bai Lan how loyal the males in the beast world were to their own females, and she did not want to change their stubbornness. Call her selfish, call her anything, but she frankly admitted that she liked and enjoyed the loyalty and unique gentleness they gave her. So Gu Mingming just smiled and said, I like the ice abstinence type. TSK, do you have masochistic tendencies? Isn't it good to coax you every day? You like to hug ice cubes. Aren't you afraid that you'll freeze? I won't. Gu Mingming chuckled because she knew better than anyone else how warm her man was to her. He would never freeze her. Bai Lan smiled slyly, a different kind of ambiguity appearing in the corner of Gu Mingming's eyes. She nudged Bai Lan with her shoulder. Aya, you are so annoying. Are you shy? As Bai Lan spoke, she held Gu Mingming and walked to the side. When she passed by Zhang Jincheng, she said with a look of disdain, aren't you the leader? Everyone is here. Don't we need to organize a practice? So you're all here to let out some fresh air in the basketball club, right? Zhang Jincheng did not lose his temper even after being teased by Bai Lan. He just chuckled and said, yes, let's hurry up and practice. The Tech University basketball team sent us a challenge letter and indicated that they want to meet Snake. When the time comes, the surrounding universities' basketball clubs will all send representatives to watch the match. Snake, whether our basketball club can become an instant hit depends on you. Aside from the topic. Chapter 1637. Having not touched a basketball for 1,000 years, Snake felt an itch to play, so he entered the changing room to change. Gregory was not a member of the basketball club, but he was tall, well-built and handsome. Zhang Jincheng had thought of pulling him into the basketball club, but Gregory was obviously an enemy of Bai Lan. He guarded Gu Mingming closely, and did not spare a single glance at anyone else. This caused Zhang Jincheng to attempt to strike up a conversation several times, only to be met with a nose full of ice. In the end, Zhang Jincheng gave up, and considering that Snake and Gregory were love rivals, for the sake of team harmony, Zhang Jincheng could only give up the idea of recruiting Gregory. And all these psychological activities, other than Zhang Jincheng, no one else noticed. He was the legendary playboy with a lot of inner drama, but no one had an audience. Snake was still very handsome when he played basketball. Gu Mingming and Bai Lan did not chat for long before their eyes were attracted to Snake. Bai Lan laughed at the side. Good for nothing. Then she gave Gregory a warning look, which probably meant, did you see that? The two of them have a good relationship. You'd better know when to back off. Don't ruin their relationship. Gregory could not be bothered with Bai Lan's warning. He just quietly admired Gu Mingming, who was looking at Snake with an infatuated look. Did he want to be the one who attracted her gaze? Grace was seriously thinking about this problem. If sweating profusely on the basketball court could make her look at him with such focus and admiration, would he be willing? The answer was yes, he was willing. But when she looked at him like that, he could not return the same focus and would miss out on her expression. Then would he still be willing? He was not willing. He had suppressed Modu for 1,000 years, which meant he had missed out on seeing her for 1,000 years. And now, he was not willing to miss out on seeing her again. So what if her gaze was not focused on him? As long as she was in his line of sight, he would feel blissful. After the practice ended, Snake brought Gu Mingming and Gregory back to the villa. Snake's sports car only had 2 seats, so a commercial car was temporarily transferred from the 4th Fleet. His sports car was parked directly in the school. Anyway, no one dared to interfere. It was Gregory's first time in a car. He was nervous and uneasy. To comfort him, Gu Mingming sat with him in the back seat. Snake was unhappy, but he only said, "So weak." He did not say anything else. Gregory did not refute. If he showed weakness, Baby Meng would accompany him and care about him. He did not mind showing weakness all the time. After all, out of the 4 males in the family, he was the only level 3 orc. Gu Mingming held onto Gregory's hand and gently patted the back of it. It's all right, don't be afraid. Snake's driving skills are top-notch. He's an experienced driver. With you here, I'm not afraid, Grace replied with a gentle smile. It would be an exaggeration to say that he was afraid. It was just that riding in a car was too novel, and Gregory was a little nervous. Fortunately, Snake drove home smoothly and did not deliberately speed to scare Gregory. The moment she alighted, Gu Mingming's phone rang. The caller ID indicated that it was Bailan. Gu Mingming didn't think much and directly picked it up. Hello Bailan. You miss me so soon? Gu Mingming's joke was met with a creepy sneer on the other end of the phone. That sneer was modified by a voice changer. Chapter 1638. If you want to save your good friend, come to the unfinished building in the northern suburbs alone. If you dare to bring one more person, I will push them down to their deaths in front of you. With that, before Gu Mingming could reply, the call was cut off. When Gu Mingming called back, it was a reminder that the phone was switched off. Gu Mingming panicked. She looked at Snake and Gregory, not knowing what to do. This is kidnapping. We can report it to the police. Snake replied calmly. Gu Mingming shook her head and said with a sobbing tone, Didn't you hear what she said just now? If one more person goes, she will push Bailan down. Snake held Gu Mingming's shoulders with both hands and said, Don't panic, Gregory and I will go with you. We will definitely help you save Bailan. But she said, Are the 2 of us humans? Snake smiled devilishly and asked Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming choked. She looked at Snake and then at Gregory and shook her head. A snake, a bird, not human, they were not human. So we can go. Snake hugged Gu Mingming and said, Don't worry, don't be afraid. We said we won't let you cry again, so we won't let you cry again. Gu Mingming was comforted by Snake's hug. She nodded and felt more at ease. Snake placed her back in the car and went straight to the unfinished building in the northern city. The unfinished building in the North City was originally meant to be a villa, but who knew that halfway through the construction, the boss lost all his money in gambling and ran away. The building was left unfinished. Usually, many drug addicts would gather here to have a good time, and those delinquents who thought they were cool and awesome would often gather here to fight or have sex. Anyway, this was the most filthy place in S City. Children from decent families would not come here. And it was naturally Gu Mingming's first time stepping into such a place. It was just evening and it was not the time for those people to move around. The walls of this dilapidated villa were filled with non-mainstream graffiti such as skulls. Burnt petrol barrels, cigarette butts and condoms were the main rubbish here. Snake parked the car outside the unfinished building. He did not let Gu Mingming enter directly, but gave Gregory a look. Gregory understood and shrugged his shoulders, transforming into a bird and flying into the night sky against the sunset glow. At a sufficient height, nothing in the unfinished building could escape Gregory's eyes. He circled around once and locked onto a location. He flew back to Mingming's side and said, In that building, I saw the shoes that Zhang Jincheng wore today. There's smoke coming from the 4th floor, but it doesn't seem like a bonfire because it's very thin and faint. All right, then I'm going in. Snake smiled and said, Tu Ming, who are you going to call to help you later? Gu Mingming pushed Snake and said, Bailan is still inside. I am not in the mood to joke around. Snake hooked Gu Mingming's chin and said, I'm not joking either. I admit that I lost to Elvis, but if you dare to be the last to call me, I will eat them. Gu Mingming was really speechless. She could only nod and say, all right, I got it. I'm going in first. Snake leaned against the car door and waved his hand, saying, Go on, Pikachu. Chapter 1639. According to the coordinates given by Gregory, Gu Mingming accurately found where Bailan and the rest were. Looking up, she saw a vulture hovering above her head at a height of 6,000 meters. She did not even need to think to know who it was. Gregory's speed was extremely fast, and he would only need about 4 seconds to dive down. That meant that if she was pushed down from the 4th floor, Gregory would be able to catch her before she hit the ground from a height of 6,000 meters. So, what was there to be afraid of? Gu Mingming hummed a tune as she walked step by step to the bottom of the villa. The shape of the walls had already been completed, but it was still rough. There were no windows or doors, and there were no handrails for the stairs. It looked tattered, and it was hard to imagine that this was originally a high-end residential area targeted at the wealthiest people. There were no obstructions along the way to the 4th floor, but having lived in the beast world for so many years, Gu Mingming still had some of the sharp senses of an orc. Of course, it was not as sharp as Elvis, Leah, and Snake, but she still had the basic ability to sense things. There seemed to be 5 or 6 people lying in ambush around the villa. From the moment she entered the villa, they quietly followed behind her. When she went up to the 2nd floor, one of the 5 or 6 people stayed behind to guard the door, probably to keep a lookout, while the rest followed her upstairs. Obviously, they were afraid that she would run away, and were prepared to surround her. TSK, they really had no sense of danger, unable to differentiate who was the hunter and who was the prey. Gu Mingming pretended that she did not notice them, and continued humming a tune as she walked up the stairs. The people lying in ambush also felt that Gu Mingming's state was not right at first, but after a closer look, she really came alone. The man who sent her here was standing by the roadside, and did not enter the estate with her at all. So they analyzed Gu Mingming's humming posture as she walked up the stairs to boost her courage, pretending to be calm and acting mysterious. When she reached the 4th floor, she saw Bailan and Zhang Jincheng tied to a folding chair, back to back. Their arms were tied together, and it was impossible for them to help each other untie the ropes. Both of their legs were tied to the legs of the chair, and the edges of the ropes were stained with blood, showing how tightly they were tied. 2 people who couldn't move were suspended in the air by iron chains. The chains swayed slightly and made a sharp and ear-piercing sound. Gu Mingming frowned and her heart twitched. When she first went to the beast world, she felt that the sharp claws and fangs of the orcs were too scary. But when she returned to the modern world, she understood, when humans are ruthless, they are much scarier than ferocious beasts. Gu Mingming. Bailan's face was covered in blood, and she could not open her eyes. She could vaguely make out a figure, and called out in a weak voice. Gu Mingming frowned and chuckled, replying, "Yeah, Bailan, I'm here to save you, don't be afraid." That sentence was like pouring a bowl of water into a boiling pot of oil. Bailan immediately struggled and shouted with all her might, "Run! You idiot! What are you doing here? Don't you know how to call the police? She asked you to come, so you came. Run. Run back immediately." Chapter 1640. A low growl was heard. It was a man's voice. Zhang Jincheng. Bailan panicked and shouted anxiously, "I'm fine, Bailan, don't worry. I'm fine." Zhang Jincheng's voice was extremely weak. When they kidnapped Bailan, he had fought with them with all his might. Although he was a member of the basketball team and had a better physique than them, a fierce tiger could not fight against a pack of wolves. How could 2 fists fight against 4 hands? Moreover, there were more than 10 of them and they were all armed. By the time he defeated 3 or 4 of them, he was already riddled with injuries. In the end, all he could do was protect Bailan with all his might, and try his best not to let her get hurt. Just now he had used up the last of his energy to turn their bodies to the back of Bailan, while his calf was hit hard by that woman. The bones in his calf were probably broken. Basketball, he might not be able to play in the future. But the moment the pain spread throughout his entire body, the first thought that came to his mind was, luckily she was not the one in pain. "Ha, you're really a Casanova." The woman laughed sarcastically. Zhang Jincheng spat out the blood in his mouth and said, "Maybe I stayed with Snake for too long and didn't learn basketball skills. I learned some infatuation. I'm not a Casanova, but as long as I, Zhang Jincheng, am still breathing, I will not let you hurt a single hair on Bailan." The woman paused when she heard Snake's name. Then, she gritted her teeth and turned to look at Gu Mingming. Her gaze was colder than a poisonous scorpion's. "The person in Snake's heart. Since he dotes on you so much, why did he let you come here alone? Ha, I think you're just SOSO." As the woman spoke, she walked towards Gu Mingming. She dragged the wooden stick on the ground and made a slight scraping sound. Gu Mengmeng did not waste her 5 years in the beast world. Her background might not be as good as the orcs, but against the modern people, even a boxing champion might not have much chance of winning against her. After all, her sparring partners in the beast world were all ferocious beasts who were kings of the mountains. However, before they started fighting, Gu Mengmeng felt that there was a need to clarify some questions, so she retracted her gaze from Bailan and looked at the woman approaching her. She asked calmly, "But who are you?" The woman paused and stared at Gu Mengmeng in disbelief. She realized that Gu Mengmeng had a blank and calm look on her face, and it was obvious that she really did not know her. Ha! Ha ha ha! Who am I? You ruined my family, and now you're asking me who I am? Ha ha ha! What could be more cruel than someone who was so jealous that they almost became a demon, but the other party didn't even remember who you were? Me? Gu Mengmeng pointed at her own nose, feeling wronged. She had just transmigrated back this morning, and had been attending classes in the morning. In the afternoon, she went to the club with Snakel. She had just returned home when she was called here before even entering the house. She did not mind destroying the family of this woman who had hurt Bailan, but she needed time to work on the case. Gu Mengmeng, go and die, you should go and die. As the woman said that, she suddenly pounced towards Gu Mengmeng and smashed the wooden stick in her hand down. Gu Mengmeng tilted her body and easily dodged the woman's attack. Having seen so many fights between Elvis and Snakel, this woman's movements were as slow as a snail's. Gu Mengmeng kicked the woman's ankle with one foot and grabbed her wrist with the other. She twisted it hard and the wooden stick in the woman's hand fell to the ground. Aside from the topic, clap for student Xiaozhan. Bravery does not mean that you are invincible. It means that even though you are clearly afraid, you still stood in front of me to protect me. Chapter 1641. Gu Mengmeng caught the wooden stick and slung it over her shoulder. As she smiled sideways, the woman fell to the ground like a dog eating **T. Gu Mengmeng even gave her a person with a wicked sense of humor. Bam! Ah! The woman screamed. She covered her wound with one hand and curled up on the ground, not daring to move. Yes, her wrist holding the wooden stick was crushed by Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng really did not do it on purpose. She just wanted to snatch the wooden stick from her hand, but she did not control her strength properly. This was an accident, really an accident. But even though it was an accident, Gu Mengmeng did not feel apologetic. She had beaten up Bailan and Zhang Jincheng so badly. Even if she killed her now, it would not be enough to appease her hatred. What more breaking a wrist? After fiddling with the wooden stick for a while, Gu Mengmeng felt bored and directly threw it out of the windowsill. A wave of scolding came from downstairs. Gu Mengmeng thought she might have hit the one on the lookout downstairs. This was just a coincidence, really. Even if she had aimed, she would not have been able to throw it so accurately. Gu Mengmeng smiled awkwardly. Then, she walked towards Bailan and Zhang Jincheng, wanting to undo the metal chains binding them. Bailan was so shocked by Gu Mengmeng's move that she could not speak for a long time. When she saw that crazy woman pouncing towards Gu Mengmeng, her heart almost jumped out of her throat. But seeing how Gu Mengmeng easily neutralized the woman's attack and flipped her over in the blink of an eye, Bailan finally heaved a sigh of relief. She looked at Gu Mengmeng who was walking towards her and said, "You're really good. You hid your strength well. Even I was fooled." Gu Mengmeng smiled without saying a word. How was she going to explain? Say that she had transmigrated to another world and lived with werewolves, foxes and snakes for a few years, so her skills improved by leaps and bounds, comparable to Tarzan of the Apes? As long as Bailan was not crazy, she would not believe it. Chick! Gu Mengmeng had just touched the metal chains when a ruffian's voice sounded from behind her. Gu Mengmeng turned back. The scene was rather unbearable. The woman whose wrist was crushed by Gu Mengmeng was dragged behind a barrel of gasoline to perform some indescribable acts. The man would pinch her injured wrist from time to time and become even more excited as he listened to her miserable cries. The man who called out to Gu Mengmeng seemed to be used to it. But when he saw Gu Mengmeng's gaze, he scolded in a joking manner. "Tisk, can't you wait till you are done with your business before getting high? You can't even hold it in for a while, trash. Brother Meng, it's time for him to eat, so he added some food. Don't bother about them, let's get down to business. A lackey came forward and whispered into Brother Meng's ear. Is it time for dinner? It's only 5 o'clock. What time for dinner? Gu Mengmeng was stunned for a moment. Then, she saw the strange expression on the man's face and understood. He was a drug addict. Brother Meng seemed to have expected this to happen. He ignored the lackeys and directly said to Gu Mengmeng, Girl, we just want money, not lives. We have no intention of meddling in the grievances between you and that slut. We just want to make friends with you and borrow some money to spend. On an old line of blackmail. TSK, what era was this? Korean dramas were already about amnesia, car accidents and leukemia. Yet they still wanted to make friends and borrow some money? Not even changing their tactics. Chapter 1642. Once Gu Mengmeng said that, Brother Meng started laughing. His laugh was rather wretched, as if he was laughing at Gu Mengmeng's innocence and ignorance. What can I do? I, your brother, still want to be friends with you. As Brother Meng said, he walked towards Gu Mengmeng. His face was clearly shriveled up, obviously influenced by the person beside him who was having a meal, and had some lewd thoughts. Whether she could defeat this Brother Meng was one thing, but to fight against him was another. Gu Mengmeng was especially aware of how sensitive the noses of the few people in her family were. If she was stained with the scent of another man, they could destroy the earth. So Gu Mengmeng smiled awkwardly and said, I really can't stop you if you want to die. With that, Gu Mengmeng punched her own collarbone hard, then grabbed her chest and twisted her ear. Brother Meng looked at Gu Mengmeng and thought that she was crazy, so he was stunned for a moment. But before he could react, a white light suddenly flashed beside Gu Mengmeng and 3 ferocious beasts appeared. A huge black wolf opened its mouth wide and bared its fangs at them. Its green eyes were filled with bloodlust and cruelty. A snake as thick as a train's skin crushed the ground of the villa and broke through the roof. Its huge body circled around the villa, and all of them were trapped by the snake's body. Snake scales glowed faintly in green light all around them, and the sound of friction made one's hair stand on end. The few men were so scared that they fell to the ground. The more timid ones peed their pants on the spot. And that innocent little person was nestled in the tail of a white and fluffy fox. She looked like a soul-seducing dodgy smiling like a flower as she watched Baigan's heart being gouged out. See, I told you. My man doesn't like me to be friends with other men. You just had to throw yourself at him. It won't be easy even if he wants to spare your life. Gu Mengmeng stood up from Li's arms and patted his back. Help me put them down first, then use the fox's seductive fragrance to make them forget what they saw today. Li nodded. Then, he waved his large tail and transformed into a human in front of everyone, leaving only one hand that looked like a fox's claw. With a wave, the metal chains were cut apart like tofu skin that could not withstand a single blow. Leah quickly untied the ropes on Bailan and Zhang Jincheng, then followed Gu Mengmeng's instructions, and used the fox's seductive fragrance to hypnotize them. Seeing that Leah had transformed into a human, Brother Meng was the first to react. He ran backwards in fear. Mother! Monster! Gu Mengmeng turned back and looked at the person who was still swaggering around. She chuckled and said, Demon? You knew they were monsters, yet you still shouted? If you shout so loudly, do you think you can run away? Brother Meng was as cowardly as a dog. He knelt down in front of Gu Mengmeng and kowtowed. Great aunt, my dear great aunt, spare me, we just wanted to get some money to spend. The idea was all that slut mo funds. She wanted to kidnap your friends to force you out. Then all the injuries on my friends were caused by her alone. Gu Mengmeng looked down at him and asked coldly. Chapter 1643. Leah did not do anything else in Europe for the past week, just researching on medical skills. He knew that he had to wait for Gu Mengmeng to find him or call him over, but if he did nothing and just waited, he would go crazy, so he shifted all his attention to his studies. He did not allow himself to have a moment of leisure, which resulted in the results of his 7 days of study being very obvious. Coupled with his own medical foundation, he quickly diagnosed John Jean Cheng's injuries. It's not convenient for me to check on that little female, but this male, his leg is broken, 4 of his ribs are broken, his head is obviously injured. There are 27 external injuries on his body and 19 bruises. Using your words here, it's called a body with cuts and bruises all over, right? Gu Mingming chuckled. Good, very good. Gu Mingming waved at Elvis, calling him to her side. She wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck gently. You don't have to do anything to these trash, even biting them to death would dirty your mouth. Yes, yes, yes. Great aunt, you're really right. Brother Meng had long been scared out of his wits by Elvis's green eyes. The pressure from staring at a ferocious beast was really not something to joke about. Gu Mingming pointed at the few people lying on the ground. The few of you, listen up. Out of everyone here, I will only allow one person to leave alive. You guys do as you see fit. Upon hearing that, the gangsters only took 2 to 3 seconds to react. They then immediately picked up their weapons and attacked the people around them. This was human. In front of a strong enemy, they would never unite as one. They did not even dare to attack Elvis, Snake and the rest. They immediately brandished their weapons and attacked their equally weak companions. Gu Mingming laughed coldly. She had respect for human lives, but survival of the fittest. The winner gets to eat alone. She was no longer the Gu Mingming who had just arrived in the beast world, who would value life regardless of right or wrong. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I'll eliminate them completely. The gangsters, who were in a frenzy of killing, each attack was more ruthless than the previous one. After about 20 minutes, the scene where there were more than 10 people just now had turned into a bloody mess. He looked at Gu Mingming and said, I survived, can I go now? Gu Mingming recognized him. He was the lackey who had been following Brother Meng just now. He seemed to have a good relationship with Brother Meng, so Brother Meng trusted him very much. When the fight started, he even stuck his back to him, planning to work together to save his life. But Brother Meng definitely didn't expect that the first blow that landed on his head was from his lackey. Gu Mingming nodded and made a pleased gesture. The lackey took 2 steps back and stopped beside Snake's body. He turned around and looked at Gu Mingming with a face full of blood. Gu Mingming smiled. Snake. Snake transformed into a human lazily and walked to Gu Mingming's side. He wiped her little face and said, That's it? You've called out the 3 beast kings, but you won't let us take action? Gu Mingming smiled and said, They are too dirty. I can't bear to dirty your hands. Elvis also transformed into a human and carried her up from the ground. I felt the pain from the mark and thought something had happened to you. Chapter 1644. Yes, Summon. A special ability possessed by the partner of a beast king. When the female felt extreme fear, or when the mating mark was attacked, no matter where the partner of a beast king was, he would be summoned to the female's side by the mating mark. And this buff was activated when Gu Mingming stepped down as the messenger of the beast deity. Every messenger of the beast deity could leave behind a buff for the beast world when she stepped down to become a beast deity. And the one Wang Xiaoxin left behind back, then allowed the males of a beast king level to enter the dreamland. It went without saying who she was waiting for. And Gu Mingming's buff was Li's idea. Because Wang Xiaoxin's departure took away all the additional abilities from Gu Mingming. She was a weak little female and needed protection. And the 3 of them were too afraid of any accidents happening to Gu Mingming. So Li's suggestion was unanimously approved by the males in the family, and Gu Mingming herself did not have any special thoughts, so she went along with them. But she did not expect that the ultimate move that she did not use in the beast world would be used on a few hooligans. But it did not matter. After all, she could save on 2 plane tickets. Elvis was appeased by Gu Mingming's I miss you. He kissed Gu Mingming's little face, then pointed at the fainted group and asked, How do we deal with them? They look like they are still breathing. Do we need to bite them to death? Gu Mingming shook her head and said, No need, just call the police. Elvis nodded and did not say a word, just accompanying Gu Mingming to sit at the side. At this moment, Gregory flew in from the window with a huge box in his hands. Gu Mingming looked at Gregory confused. Gregory handed the box to Snake, who opened it to reveal that it was filled to the brim with US dollars. Gu Mingming was flabbergasted. This? Snake threw the box to the side, then stroked Gu Mingming's hair and said, "Since you don't wish to dirty our hands, then we can only let them receive the legal punishment of the human world. After all, those who offended my Tuming cannot be let off easily no matter what." So, Snake gently pinched Gu Mingming's little face and said, "They kidnapped by Lan and Zhang Jincheng. The police can verify the process by investigating the surveillance cameras along the way. Then he would call you and threaten you to come alone. This is also very simple. Just check the call records. I called you here to extort money from you. After all, you are the CEO of Monsieur Group and the future daughter-in-law of the royal family of F country. You are very valuable. That's why I'm here to deliver the money. It's a pity that they couldn't divide the spoils evenly and had internal strife." Gu Mingming laughed softly. "This box of money is the evidence." Snakel smiled and nodded. "My father made it very clear before he left. Whoever dares to bully you will be challenging the dignity of the F country's royal family and destroying the diplomatic relations between the two countries." Gu Mingming said, "What if they tell others that they saw you guys transform?" Snake's eyes flashed and he laughed. "If this gets out, people will only think that they overdosed on drugs and hallucinated, right? Tell me, if you were a police officer, would you believe the crazy words of a kidnapper and drug addict?" Chapter 1645. To be honest, as a modern local, Gu Mingming was not as knowledgeable as an outsider like Snake. Or rather, Gu Mingming was a commoner living at the bottom of society. Even if she was as scheming as Snake, she would not be able to produce such a huge box of US dollars as evidence. She would also not be able to use the word diplomatic relations to force the government to settle this matter according to their wishes. All the hooligans would not be able to escape from forced detoxification and jail time. But Gu Mingming's gaze landed on the woman who was curled up behind the barrel of gasoline. Her body was covered in bruises and her clothes could not cover her body. Her messy hair and bloodstains at the corner of her lips were all signs of what she had just experienced. The wrist that was crushed by Gu Mingming was dangling at a weird angle on her knee. Her pupils were dilated, and it was obvious that she was frightened by the scene just now. Come to think of it, if it was anyone else, they would also be frightened. Didn't Gu Mingming faint on the spot the first time she saw Snake's original body? As for this woman, she had seen the main bodies of all three orcs at once without any warning. She was already very courageous to just stand there blankly and not die on the spot. "You don't remember her?" Snake followed Gu Mingming's gaze and asked. Gu Mingming did not answer Snake's question. Instead, she turned to look at Snake and asked in confusion, "Should I know her?" Snake chuckled and said, "You must not have been paying attention when you were watching television with Wang Xiaoxin." Gu Mingming's face was wooden and she did not reply. Snake said, "During the gathering after the press conference, the one who locked you in the toilet and splashed a basin of water on you." Yes, Snake had completely forgotten about the incident where Gu Mingming straddled her and slapped her. He only remembered that this woman bullied his Tumeng. Now that Snake mentioned it, Gu Mingming remembered that it had indeed happened. "But she was the one who provoked me first. I only slapped her a few times. Did she have to kidnap Bai Lan to kill me?" Gu Mingming was confused. Snake took out his cell phone from his pocket and opened a few popular news websites. He searched for news related to the MO group and passed it to Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming swiped her cell phone twice and her facial features turned on the emoji pack mode. She grimaced as she read a few of the headlines, then looked at Snake and asked, "These were made by you?" Snake shook his head, determined not to take the blame. "It's not me, it's the assistant who did it. But the result is still satisfactory. This assistant can be promoted, get a raise and get a good car." Gu Mingming rubbed her temples, feeling a headache coming on. How should I put it? It wasn't that she was a saint, but at the end of the day, this young lady of the Mo family was just a little arrogant and willful. She had poured a basin of water over her head, that was all. Moreover, she immediately fought back. Strictly speaking, she really did not suffer any losses. It was indeed wrong of Mo Fun to capture Bai Lan and Zhang Jincheng and beat them up, but it was also because of Snake's ruthlessness. No one could say who was right and who was wrong. It was a complete mess. Chapter 1646. You want me to repay evil with good? But Tu Meng, repay evil with good. How can I repay good? Snake's face was cold. He was not willing to let off anyone who dared to provoke Gu Mengmeng. He could not even bear to touch a finger on the person he cherished dearly. So how could she be bullied by others? Yes, the one in the toilet was not the real Gu Mengmeng, but an illusory image. But the illusory image was also Snake's illusory image. She was the treasure he cherished dearly, and anyone who dared to touch her would die. Elvis was also in the illusion when Gu Mengmeng was drenched in water. He had accompanied Gu Mengmeng to the end, so he knew what had happened. When Snake reminded Gu Mengmeng who that woman was, Elvis's face darkened. The two males who had been fighting for the position of the first partner for so many years actually reached a high level of tacit understanding and unity on this matter. I feel that Snake is right, Xiaomeng. Being kind to your enemy is being cruel to yourself. If you don't remove the roots, the weeds will grow again. Gu Mengmeng suddenly felt very helpless. The cause of this incident was just Mo Fun being cheap. She clearly had a fiancé but still had her sights set on Snake, so she drenched Gu Mengmeng with water. This kind of method used by junior high school students to ostracize their female classmates could not even be considered as childish, let alone bullying. Even if they really bullied Gu Mengmeng, the Mo family had already paid a sufficient price. If they continued to force her, the news tomorrow would probably be old Master Mo jumping off a building. Gu Mengmeng cast her gaze at Leah. Leah smiled knowingly and waved his large tail. Did you all not understand Gu Mengmeng's meaning? Elvis and Snake glanced sideways at Leah. They had no choice even if they did not want to admit it. Among the four males in the family, Leah was the one who was the best at understanding Gu Mengmeng's thoughts. Leah swayed his large tail as he walked to Gu Mengmeng's side. As he placed his tail into her arms, he smiled slyly at Mo Fun and said, "That Mo family should have been completely suppressed by you to the point where they have nowhere else to go, unable to withstand a single blow, and are just waiting for death? They must have lost all hope and given up struggling, waiting for death to come." Snake nodded. The Fan family was the last hope of the Mo family, but what Fan Yuanbin did was too extreme. That was practically the last straw that broke the camel's back. Now the Mo family was just waiting for death as Leah had described. Even if there was still half a day of hope, Mo Fun wouldn't dare to do such a thing. This was clearly an act of mutual destruction. Stupid, but also sad. Leah shrugged his shoulders, as if he had thought of something interesting. He continued, "They want to die, so you let them die." Could it be that after following Mengmeng as a beast god for a few years, you've really become a god who loves the world and is compassionate? Snake paused for a moment and suddenly smiled. The corners of his lips curled upwards as he said, "You bullied my Tu Meng. Do you want to die? How can it be that cheap?" Elvis did not understand, and just frowned at the two sinister people in front of him. After a moment of silence he said, "You two are in charge of coming up with ideas. I am only in charge of executing." Snake looked at Elvis and said, "You don't have to do anything, that little assistant of mine is quite capable." Chapter 1647. When the police arrived, they saw the floor littered with hooligans on their last breaths, Mo Fun who was in a state of rags, Gu Mengmeng who was safe and sound in Snake's arms, and the bodyguard Gregory who was sent by the F Kingdom's prince to protect the future princess, who had been exposed in various media reports in the early morning. Bai Lan and Zhang Jincheng were escorted by Elvis and Leah to the hospital, where there were people arranged by Snake to receive them. Actually, it was not a big problem even without Elvis and Leah, but they were summoned by Gu Mengmeng using the mating mark, and did not have any records of entering the country. It would be troublesome if they appeared suddenly, so they accompanied Bai Lan and Zhang Jincheng to the hospital. Gu Mengmeng followed the script that Snake had arranged, and explained it to the police. The police were all scared out of their wits. However, Gu Mingming changed Emofan's part slightly, from the kidnapper to the helper. She said that Emofan was bullied by the hooligans because he wanted to protect her, and if not for Emofan, she would have been the one being bullied. So in the end, Emofan was not brought away by the police, but was sent back to the Emo family by Snake's men. And the only lackey who left the unfinished building alive became the wanted target of the police, and was identified as the mastermind of this kidnapping. He was the scapegoat, but he could not shake off this blame, because he had indeed participated in the kidnapping, and it was not the first time he had killed someone, so it was not wrong for him to be wanted. And the video of Emofan kidnapping by Lan and Zhang Jincheng was also sent back to the Emo family. These videos were all taken down by Snake, and other than Snake, the police did not have a single one in their hands. Only Gu Mingming and Snake's confession could be used as evidence. There was no choice, because the words of those hooligans after they woke up could not be trusted. What giant wild wolf, Snake as thick as a trained skin, TSK, their brains were really full of holes from all the drugs they drank. None of them were normal. In the end, they were all sent to the Drug Rehabilitation Center for forced detoxification. And Old Master Emo did not even wait for the next day. That very night, he led a group of men and women from the Emo family to the villa Gu Mingming was staying in. Snake did not seem to be surprised at all. He just sat on the main seat of the sofa like a king, playing with Gu Mingming's fingers out of boredom, leaving the entire Emo family standing in front of him at a loss of what to do. With a plop, Old Master Mo's body bent and he directly knelt on the ground, saying, "Since you're willing to bury that vile spawn's deeds and protect her by sending her back to the Emo clan, it's clear that you don't really intend to exterminate the Emo clan. As long as you can leave a way out for our family, no matter what you want to do, we won't say anything." Gu Mingming felt extremely uncomfortable being kneeled by someone who could be her grandfather. She wanted to help Grandfather Emo up, but Snake held her waist and whispered into her ear, "In front of me, he doesn't have the right to flaunt his seniority. You are my woman. You have a very high status." Gu Mingming kept quiet. Snake should be 2,000 years old by now. In front of him, Old Master Emo, who was over 70 years old, could be called a little fresh meat. But this little fresh meat had the face of an old man. Gu Mingming still felt uncomfortable. Chapter 1648. The Emo family? The Emo family was now in a terrible mess, riddled with holes. Snakel said he wanted something that others might not even want even if they offered it to others. Was it clear that he was willing to let the Emo family off? Elder Emo was stunned for a moment before he hurriedly got his family members to help him up from the ground. Only when Elder Emo stood up did the rest of the Emo family dare to stand up as well. Elder Emo sat on the sofa. His 70 years of life had given him a wealth of experience. Even though he could not see through the thoughts of this man in front of him, he could tell that he doted on and accommodated that young girl. So the Emo family could be revived and receive this amnesty was probably because that young girl was magnanimous and was willing to let the Emo family off this once. Without saying anything else, Elder Emo smiled at Gu Mingming and nodded. It was a small action, but it was obvious how much gratitude he was showing. Snakel did not like other men to size up Gu Mingming, even if they were like a withered old cucumber. She was only 70 years old, and this kind of fresh meat was very dangerous. He had to guard her with all his might. Who knew what was wrong with Gu Mingming that she would suddenly like ugly and wrinkled men? Frowning, Snakel glared at Elder Emo and said, "Since you have sat down, does that mean you agree to my purchase of the Emo family?" "Agree, of course I agree." Elder Emo did not dare to object. "Then is there anything else?" Snakel was obviously asking them to leave. Elder Emo was taken aback. This verbal agreement was enough? Would Snakel suddenly change his mind tomorrow and not want the Emo family anymore? This young man, he always did whatever he wanted. What kind of person was Snakel? Elder Mo's thoughts were as clear to him as the monk's scar on his head. As long as one was not blind, he would be able to see it clearly. "My assistant will bring a team of lawyers to the Emo family tomorrow to negotiate," Snakel said calmly. Elder Emo then relaxed and smiled apologetically. "Since that's the case, we shall not disturb you any further." Goodbye, goodbye. Snakel gestured for them to leave, but did not even have the intention to stand up. After the Mo family left the villa, Snake didn't let go of Gu Mengmeng, and just carried her upstairs. As he went upstairs, he sent a message to his assistant. 2 sentences. Take over the Mo group tomorrow morning, and first floor of the villa, new sofa set. Yes, how could he let his Tuming sit on a sofa that another man had sat on? Gu Mingming's room was in the master bedroom on the 2nd floor. Snake had predicted from the start that Gu Mengmeng would not agree to stay in his room when she moved in. So he just emptied the master bedroom and stayed in the 2nd bedroom. However, anyway, he would not stay for long. After all, he had planned to stay in Gu Mingming's room from the start. Now that they had become partners, it was even more justifiable for him to avoid it. He naturally carried Gu Mengmeng back to the main nest. His eyebrows twitched. Initially, when he designed such a spacious master bedroom, it was not to accommodate so many people. Leah laid sideways on the side of the king-size bed. He swayed his tail seductively and smiled at Gu Mengmeng with a beauty that could cause the downfall of nations and people. He opened his mouth and said, Mengmeng, this bed has your scent, it smells so good. Gu Mengmeng blushed strangely. It was just a normal sentence. Why did Leah make it sound so ambiguous? Aside from the topic. Chapter 1649. Mengmeng, you have given me the cold shoulder for a week. Aren't you going to comfort me? MMM. Leah used his elbow to support his head and reached out a finger to beckon at Gu Mengmeng. That coquettish and charming look was like the reincarnation of Daji, destined to captivate the masses with his bewitching looks. After seeing that face for so many years, Gu Mengmeng was still not immune to it. Wiping away her saliva, Gu Mengmeng pounced at him and hugged him. She rubbed her face against Li's chest and said, How is it a week? Didn't we transmigrate together in the morning? Leah pinched Gu Mengmeng's face and said, Snake made some minor adjustments to our transmigration points. Although we transmigrated together, we arrived here a week earlier than you guys. Gu Mengmeng turned back to look at Snake and wanted to ask why. But before she could open her mouth, Snake replied, They need time to adapt to the life here, so as to avoid causing you any trouble. Gu Mengmeng did not understand. Li's chin rested lightly on Gu Mengmeng's furry little head. He wrapped his large arms around Gu Mengmeng's waist and wrapped his fluffy and white large tail around Gu Mengmeng's waist for her to hug. When Gu Mengmeng was in his arms, Li's voice was always lazy and a little hoarse and casual. He said, Snake was a normal person in the past, but now he, Elvis and Gregory are complete bodies that transmigrated from the beast world. The most basic thing is, the 4 of us cannot enter the hospital. So this week, I improved the medical skills I learned from the television to ensure that I can handle any special situation. Gu Mengmeng glanced sideways at Leah with some heartache. Her small hands caressed Li's face and she said, Actually, you don't have to work so hard. She did not want to admit it, but this was just an illusion. If there was an emergency, they could leave anytime. That grassland was now their stability in the modern world. Leah knew what Gu Mengmeng was thinking. He caressed the back of Gu Mengmeng's head with his fingertips and kissed the top of her head. He said, If this place can make your life more comfortable, there's nothing wrong with us staying here. As long as you are here, to me, anywhere is home. Thank you. Gu Mengmeng was extremely touched. She rubbed her little face against Li's chest and whimpered like a kitten. Silly girl. Even Leah himself did not realize how much love and indulgence was contained in those 2 words. At that time, he thought that his heart would never beat again. He thought that there was only scheming, hatred, and revenge left in his life. It was this little thing who stumbled into his trap and turned his world upside down. It was also because of this that the sunlight shone into the dark corner where he was curled up, and that cold heart gradually resumed beating. Only he, who had crawled out of the darkness, knew how much he longed for warmth and light. Especially after losing her, he would never forget the feeling of falling from the warm sun into an ice cave. At that time, every tear she shed and every heartless word she said was a warning to him for the rest of his life. He would never let her suffer again. That was his promise to himself. Elvis scooped Gu Mengmeng out from Li's arms and chuckled. I am the first partner. With me around. When was it your turn to hug Xiao Meng? Aside from the topic. Chapter 1650. Leah rolled his eyes at Elvis in a tsundere manner and snorted. Without saying anything else, he rolled around on the bed and hugged Gu Mengmeng's pillow to take a deep breath. Then he looked at Gu Mengmeng with a dubious smile. Elvis placed Gu Mengmeng on the chair beside the dressing table and looked at her reflection in the mirror. I saw it in Europe, do you like it? Gu Mengmeng tilted her head and saw a European bronze wooden comb in Snake's hands. She smiled and asked, why did you think of giving me a wooden comb? Elvis said, when we went to Sauter to participate in the beauty pageant the first year, you said you wanted a rhinoceros horn comb. It's a pity you didn't even make one after breaking off so many beast horns from Oraton. If Elvis had not mentioned this, Gu Mengmeng would have long forgotten about it. But looking at Elvis's expression, it was obvious that he had kept it in his heart and felt that he had disappointed Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng smiled and took the comb from Elvis. It's very pretty. I like it very much. Thank you. Let me help you comb your hair? Elvis's gaze was gentle. Gu Mengmeng nodded and sat down obediently. Snake leaned against the door and watched Elvis comb Gu Mengmeng's hair. He asked with a faint smile. Did you buy this comb? Do you have money? Gu Mengmeng clearly felt Elvis pause in his combing action. He suddenly looked up at Snake, and then back at Gu Mengmeng. His face was filled with confusion. Gu Mengmeng's heart skipped a beat. That. Elvis, don't tell me you took it from someone else without paying? That's right. How could there be a concept of buying and selling in the beast world? If I like it, I will just snatch it. If you are not happy, you can snatch it back. Elvis shook his head and said, the money was paid by someone else. Someone else? Gu Mengmeng caught on to an important point and asked in confusion. Elvis nodded and said, there was a male who had a lot of these combs. I challenged him and said that if I won, he would give me this comb, but he rejected. And then? Gu Mengmeng's heart was in her throat. How could a modern man withstand a beating from a beast king like Elvis? It would be troublesome if someone died because of a comb. Elvis said. Then another male walked over and said that if I fought with his men, regardless of the outcome, he would give me this comb. I agreed. Gu Mengmeng's face was filled with confusion. There were still such warmongers in the modern world? Fight me, and I'll give you a wooden comb? What kind of godly development was this? But Snake just smiled, looking as if he knew it all too well. He asked, lost or won? Elvis frowned and said, the males in this world can't take a beating. Gu Mengmeng stood up immediately and grabbed onto Elvis's arm with both her hands, asking, Hubby, did you beat someone to death? Elvis shook his head and said, he didn't die, he just broke an arm. Did you show your original form? Gu Mengmeng asked. Elvis shook his head and said, he punched me, so I grabbed his wrist and wanted to throw him out. The moment I threw him, his arm broke. I don't know either, he looked quite strong, but why are his bones so soft? One pull and it broke. Chapter 1651. It was normal for males to break an arm or a leg during a fight, so Elvis did not take it to heart at first. But after Leah found out about it, he told him that the rules of this world were different from the beast world, and that he might bring trouble to Gu Meng by beating people up like that. Just like what Leah said, this was the world that Gu Mengmeng was familiar with. She lived more comfortably here. So he and Leah hoped that she could stay here as she pleased, and not be forced to end this illusion because of them. Gu Mengmeng turned back to look at Snake, asking, Kel? Snake chuckled and rubbed Gu Mengmeng's head, saying, it's all right, didn't he just fight a boxing match in the black market? It's common for people to be beaten to death in this kind of underground competition, so no one would pursue it. Moreover, F country is my territory. As long as he doesn't beat the president to death in public, I can settle everything else. Gu Mengmeng sweated. So what Snake meant was that it was not that the president could not be beaten to death, as long as it was not in public. Snake looked at Gu Mengmeng's darkened face, and could not help but smile, saying, all right, even if he beats the president to death in public, I will definitely protect him. Is that all right? Don't worry. Gu Mingming roared in her heart. You are making me even more worried, all right? No normal person would beat the president to death, all right? If you support them like this, aren't you afraid that Elvis will be even more unbridled in the future? Xiaoming, don't worry. In the future, I won't beat people up so easily. Elvis coaxed Gu Mingming. I'm afraid that's not up to you. Snake walked to Gu Mingming with a faint smile and placed his phone on top of Gu Mingming's makeup box. The phone was playing a video, and the scene was of an underground boxing match. Although his face was blurred out, Gu Mingming could recognize that one of the two people on the stage was Elvis. Gu Mingming was confused. Snakel smiled as he kept his phone and said, the one whose arm was broken by Elvis is the most popular boxing champion in the past 2 years. People call him Boss Black Boxing. Countless boxers have died in his hands. But today, his right arm was crippled by a light toss from Elvis. But the boss behind the scenes is not a righteous person. He has no intention of seeking justice for the Black Fist boss. Instead, he offered a huge reward to find out Elvis's whereabouts. It is obvious that he wants to groom him well. Gu Mingming shook her head and said, No, I don't want Elvis to be associated with this kind of person. Snake rubbed Gu Mingming's little head and said, All right, then I will suppress this news and guarantee that Elvis will not find this person on their information channels. Wait. Elvis frowned as he took Snake's phone and swiped it twice. His brows lightly touched as he stared at it for a long time before turning to look at Gu Mingming. In a negotiating tone he said, Xiaoming, can you let me fight another round? Gu Mingming looked at Elvis in confusion and asked, Why? If you want to exercise your muscles, Snake and Leah are good sparring partners. No matter how strong those people in the underground black market are, they are not enough for you to fight. Elvis shook his head and said, No, I don't want to fight, I just want this. Chapter 1652. The boss of the black boxing boss took out an extremely exquisite comb. It was said to be one of the dowries of the first queen of F country. It was inlaid with the world's most perfect ruby, the blazing sun. It was said that this comb could make the woman who owned it extremely blissful. Gu Mingming chuckled. A comb could make someone extremely blissful? Why don't you say that the ruby on it is from De Beers Kimberly? A ruby is everlasting. One will be passed down forever. Xiaoming. Elvis looked serious. Yes, he had obviously eaten this Amway. No. Gu Mingming put on a straight face and said, I only need one wooden comb. I don't have the hobby of collecting combs. Moreover, I only have one head and this much hair. How many combs can I use? Hubby, listen to me. This person is obviously lying to you. If you go for this comb this time, he will use some other gimmick comb to entice you to fight again. Fight after fight, it will never end. Elvis pursed his lips. If it could make Xiaoming happier, it was really nothing to fight. Hubby, you are different from the people here. If you expose yourself too many times, you will definitely attract attention. What if your identity is exposed? I won't. Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's little face. He coaxed and begged. I promise, I won't let anyone discover my identity. I still want to stay here and accompany you to live the life you like. But Xiaoming, I am a male. I can't hide at home forever and wait for others to provide for me. I have to have my own ability to protect you. Gu Mingming choked and could not say a word. Snake had worked hard here for 19 years. With the noble bloodline of the royal family, his social status and wealth naturally went without saying. When Leah was in the beast world, he had already learned many years of medical skills through television. He was naturally intelligent and exceptionally gifted in medical skills. She believed that it would not take long for him to achieve outstanding achievements in the medical field. While Elvis, as the first partner in the family, did not have his own career. She had neglected a man's pride. Be it in the beast world or the modern world, living off a woman was a disgrace to a man. But Gu Mingming still felt uneasy. Fighting in an underground fight sounded dangerous no matter how she heard it. Elvis smiled and said, I have the power of a beast king. No one in this world can hurt me. Snake placed his hand on Gu Mingming's shoulder lightly and said, with the royal family protecting him, No one would dare to make things difficult for him. Leah also swayed his large tail and sat by the bed. He smiled at Gu Mengmeng in the mirror and said, "If I really meet a strong opponent one day and get my arms or legs broken, then I can use them for clinical trials. That's pretty good." All right, the three of them were on the same team. Gu Mengmeng looked at Gregory, who had not said a word. Gregory only smiled and said, "I'm just a guardian beast. I don't have the right to question the first partner's decision." Gu Mengmeng sighed and cupped Elvis's face with both hands. "Hubby, you have to promise me not to get hurt." "All right." Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng's little face, and this matter was settled. The next morning, Gu Mengmeng packed her things and headed straight to the hospital to visit Bailan and Zhang Jincheng. It was not convenient for Elvis and Leah to appear, so Snake and Gregory accompanied her. Out of topic. Chapter 1653. Girl. The moment the door to the ward opened, Bailan saw Gu Mengmeng. She immediately threw away the apple she was chewing halfway and opened her arms, waiting for Gu Mengmeng to deliver herself to her. Snake was unwilling but had no choice. He could only let go of Gu Mengmeng and watch as Gu Mengmeng threw herself into someone else's arms. "How are you? Does it still hurt?" Gu Mengmeng hugged Bailan, then pulled a pillow over for her to lean on. Bailan laughed heartlessly and said, "I'm fine, but he..." Glancing sideways at Zhang Jincheng, Bailan blushed and said, "He agreed to my proposal. 2 years later, he will have a graduation certificate on his left hand and a marriage certificate on the right. After taking off his academic robes, he will directly wear a wedding dress." "What?" Gu Mengmeng was dumbfounded and completely out of it. Bailan chuckled and said, "Sorry girl, I might have to abandon you. This man is too stupid. If I don't keep a close eye on him, he will be snatched away by others. So, can you understand me? MMM?" Gu Mengmeng burst out laughing and said, "You are really too much. You are the one proposing. Why don't you let him do it?" Bailan glanced at Zhang Jincheng's knees and said, "In this lifetime, I will never let him be afraid of his knees touching the ground again." Gu Mengmeng did not understand and turned to look at Snake. Snake said, "When those people kidnapped them yesterday, Zhang Jincheng knelt on the ground and used his body to protect Bailan. After that, Emofen waved the rod in front of you and broke Zhang Jincheng's calf bone. I have already contacted the best doctor, and he will be able to walk normally in the future. But when it rains, it will definitely hurt." Gu Mengmeng lowered her eyes and held Bailan's hand, saying, "Bailan, I'm sorry. It's all because of me that you guys have been implicated." "Silly girl, what are you saying?" Bailan pinched Gu Mengmeng. "If it wasn't for you, I would never have believed that someone would risk her life for me and not abandon me even under such circumstances. I've been strong for 19 years, and this is the first time I've been protected. Girl, if what Emofen did is related to you, then I should thank you. If it wasn't for this, I might have missed out on the only idiot in my life who values me more than her own life. But..." Gu Mengmeng looked at Bailan and Zhang Jincheng's white bandages and felt guilty. Bailan raised her arm and smiled. "You're talking about this? Come on, you're so pretentious. I have a bad temper, and I spend more time in the hospital than in the dormitory. This injury is nothing." Gu Mengmeng was speechless. That year, when Bailan was beaten up to the point of asking for her salary, she had said the same thing to her. Gu Mengmeng tugged at Bailan's hand. "Since you have decided to get married, you cannot be so hot-tempered in the future. You have to think about your man too, don't you? Without you, what will he do?" Bailan glanced at Zhang Jincheng, smiled and said, I understand." Zhang Jincheng, who had remained silent from the start, frowned at Bailan's smile. "Bailan, your proposal does not count." Chapter 1654. Gu Mengmeng was really at a loss. Were these two really going to get married? Why did she feel like Bailan was going to snatch an innocent man? Zhang Jincheng was not annoyed. He waited for Bailan to finish yelling before narrowing his eyes. "Bailan, you're sitting on my wound. It's a little painful." "Ah." Bailan was shocked. She immediately stood up from Zhang Jincheng's body and glared down at him. Pain? What pain? You're going to break off the marriage and leave me. Why would I care if it hurts? Although she said that, she did not sit back down. Her careful look was clearly because she was afraid of touching Zhang Jincheng's wound again. Zhang Jincheng seemed to be used to her tough mouth, but soft heart. He didn't mind that she was standing high up on his bed and looking down at him. He was willing to look up at her. When I recover, I'll still be the one to propose. Zhang Jincheng said gently. I told you before, I don't have much more than others. But what other women have, I, Zhang Jincheng's wife, cannot lack. Marriage only happens once in a lifetime. You have to make me beg you to marry me. Only then will you have enough confidence to put on airs when you come to my house. If someone in my family makes things difficult for you when I'm not at home, then you can confidently yell. It was your Zhang Jincheng who shamelessly begged me to marry him. Only then will you be unyielding and won't be bullied, understand? Bailan's anger instantly subsided. She cleared her throat and jumped down from Zhang Jincheng's bed. Then, she quietly sat back on the bed and covered herself with the blankets. With a demure expression, she said, If you want to beg, just do it. Why are you so fierce? Gu Mengmeng burst out laughing. Zhang Jincheng fierce. From the beginning to the end, the other party had been speaking softly and softly, while Bailan, on the other hand, was like a female bandit, straddling him like she was going to beat him up. I was wrong. I shouldn't have been fierce to you. Zhang Jincheng apologized without any principles. Gu Mengmeng was shocked. In the beast world, it was normal for males to compromise like this. But this was the modern world. Other than saying I can't do anything if you think that way, and the all-purpose golden phrase, drink more hot water. Guys could actually do such things. Io. Gu Mengmeng clutched her forehead and looked at Snake, who had knocked her on the head, her eyes filled with accusation. Snake clenched his teeth and scooped Gu Mengmeng up. The visit is over. Let's go back to school. Huh. Gu Mengmeng protested. Didn't you say that with you around no one would dare to record me for skipping class? I still have to accompany Bailan. What's there to accompany? Does she need you to accompany her? You big third wheel. Snake carried Gu Mengmeng away, without giving her a chance to explain. Gu Mengmeng thought about it. Snake was right, he really did not need her to accompany him now. After leaving the hospital, Snake shoved Gu Mengmeng into the car. He did not start the car, but stared at Gu Mengmeng with a dark face, as if he wanted to stare 2 holes into her face. What's wrong? Gu Mengmeng felt guilty for no reason. Are you regretting it? Snake narrowed his eyes. Danger filled the entire carriage. What? Gu Mengmeng was dumbfounded. Snake said, If I hadn't snatched your love letter back then, Zhang Jincheng would be your boyfriend now, right? Seeing how considerate he is towards Bailan, you regret letting him off, right? Gu Mengmeng held her forehead. The sorrow in her heart flowed like a river. Chapter 1655. Don't play around with your friend's wife. Don't touch your best friend's man. Gu Mengmeng was tired of how her man could not be picky about the brand, origin, year and quality when he got jealous. And Gu Mengmeng's explanation clearly did not satisfy Snake. He squinted his eyes and emitted a dangerous aura. After a while, he suddenly laughed again. With a cold voice he said, Bailan better be your best friend forever and never break up with Zhang Jincheng, or else I will eat him up. Gu Mengmeng was taken aback and only understood Snake's train of thought after a long while. Don't touch my best friend's man. So as long as Zhang Jincheng was still Bailan's man, Gu Mengmeng would never touch him. At the same time, if Zhang Jincheng was no longer Bailan's man, or if Bailan and Gu Mengmeng were no longer best friends, then Gu Mengmeng would touch Zhang Jincheng. Gu Mengmeng sighed. It was really unreasonable to talk to a man who got jealous. Don't worry, my friendship with Bailan will last forever. She and Zhang Jincheng will also grow old together. Snake's lips curled up and he said, I hope so. Bailan and Zhang Jincheng's physique was very good and Snake had specially arranged for the most authoritative doctor from F country to come over. This action alarmed Snake's parents in F country, and they called Snake's assistant to find out that Gu Mengmeng had been kidnapped and threatened. They almost fainted from the shock, and old mistress cried and wiped her tears, saying that she would arrange for a private jet to fly to S city to bring her precious daughter-in-law back to F country to protect her. Poor parents, although their son was outstanding since young and had a surly and unapproachable character, but he was still their son. After 19 years of coldness, their son finally became more amiable towards them because of this daughter-in-law. God knows how much they treasured this daughter-in-law. Afterwards, Snake sent a video call to his family with a cold face and told them clearly that don't come. Old mistress was about to cry, but Gu Mengmeng snatched Snake's phone and coaxed her gently, saying that she was really fine and not to worry. She even promised to fly to F country to see them once the holidays started. Only then did she finally calm down. After more than 2 months, Bailan and Zhang Jincheng finally left the hospital. It was said that it would take 100 days for one's bones and tendons to recover, but Zhang Jincheng had played basketball since he was young, so his physique was much better than the average person. Of course, he could not be compared to perverts like Elvis and Snake. They were not human. The doctor said that Zhang Jincheng could walk normally with this leg, but he definitely couldn't touch basketball anymore. Jumping and other strenuous activities could not be done again. In the future, he would have to pay special attention to his health and not get hurt again. Then, 2 months later, Gu Mengmeng received a call from Zhang Jincheng out of the blue. Without saying anything, he shamelessly begged her to keep Bailan in the dormitory for the next 3 days and not let her go out. Then, at 8 p.m., he had to bring her to the basketball court. Gu Mengmeng frowned, realizing that things were not so simple. After experiencing so many things in the beast world, Zhang Jincheng's thoughts were really too obvious. Chapter 1656. Facing 4 pairs of cunning eyes, Gu Mengmeng truly felt wronged. Strictly speaking, she was not the one who wrote this love letter. When this love letter was handed to Zhang Jincheng, she was still lying beside Wang Xiaoxin, calling her daddy. But now, she felt like she could not explain herself. Gu Mengmeng sighed and said, I feel that Zhang Jincheng might be calling me to propose to Bailan. Why would he call you to propose to Bailan? Elvis frowned and asked directly. Before Gu Mengmeng could reply, Leah laughed and said, Who knows? Maybe Bailan is just a cover, and he actually wants to propose to Gu Mengmeng? With that, the temperature in the room dropped to the North Pole. Gu Mengmeng hurriedly waved her hands and said, I swear, shut up. Snake said coldly and angrily, The first rule of the family, you are not allowed to swear. Now you want to break your own family rule for a Zhang Jincheng? Gu Mengmeng choked, meeting Snake's eyes. She could not say the word swear. Cutting open her chest to take her gallbladder. How heavy was that oath? Sneaking a glance at the silent Gregory, Gu Mengmeng's heart sank when she met Gregory's sorrowful eyes. Broken wings and blind eyes. Oaths were not good things. She should not have said it. You don't have to care about me. I am not in a position to express my opinion. Gregory's body shook indiscernibly. Gu Mengmeng was immediately drowned in guilt. Gregory meant that he did not agree, but he did not have the right to disagree. As a guardian, he did not even have the right to be jealous. Xiaomeng. Elvis clenched his fists so tightly that his bones were cracking. He gritted his teeth and squeezed out a sentence. If you want a partner who is the same as you, I can accept it. Gu Mengmeng looked at Elvis's cheeks bulging. His gums were probably about to bleed from clenching so hard. Gu Mengmeng was really on the verge of breaking down. Heaven knew that she and Zhang Jincheng were as innocent as an unopened A4 paper. That Gu Mengmeng, who liked Zhang Jincheng, was not her. What a generous first mate. However, a male pet like me doesn't have that kind of magnanimity. I was born to be jealous and petty. I can't allow anyone to be more pampered than me by Mengmeng. So if you want to mate with Mengmeng, sure, but you have to defeat me first. Leah raised his head, giving off if he's the only one, attitude. Sure. Gu Mengmeng slapped her thigh and said, How about this, if Zhang Jincheng doesn't propose to Bailan but to me 3 days later? You guys will eat him up on the spot, and I will help you prepare waxami. How about that? Snake, Leah, Elvis and Gregory exchanged glances with one another, before curling their lips in satisfaction and nodding their heads in agreement. Gu Mingming finally heaved a sigh of relief. But Bai Lan is my friend after all. This is probably the only time she will propose in her lifetime. Chapter 1657. Oh, your snake is suddenly so easygoing today? They actually let you out to accompany me? Bai Lan looked at Gu Mingming, who had suddenly asked her out to go shopping. She smiled playfully. Why? Have your two icebergs finally collided and merged into one? Gu Mingming blushed. She now seriously felt that it was Bai Lan who had led her astray when she had first arrived in the beast world. She pinched Bai Lan's waist and said, Snake is the real CEO of Monsieur Company after all. Doesn't he have to work every day? Bai Lan, however, did not believe it. She took a sip of her hazelnut frappuccino and said, This semester, ever since the two of you started dating in a high-profile manner, when have you ever seen him neglect you because of work? The person who wants to tie you to his belt every day suddenly gives you freedom. TSK, there must be a reason for this abnormality. Although I don't like him from an objective point of view, he's still a good boyfriend. Silly girl, you have to be more vigilant. Don't let others take advantage of you. If that happens, you won't even have a place to cry. Gu Mingming was really speechless. Snake and the rest were busy helping Zhang Jincheng arrange for his marriage proposal. But the one being proposed to was actually suspecting him of cheating. Gu Mingming could not betray Zhang Jincheng, so she could only laugh dryly. What are you afraid of, have you forgotten? Snake has already transferred the Monsieur Company to me. I am now a true rich lady in S City. Bai Lan chuckled and said, All right, then my dream has come true. Gu Mingming tilted her head and smiled. What dream? Bai Lan, one day, when our girl becomes a rich woman, she'll come back and support me. Gu Mingming laughed heartily and hugged Bai Lan's shoulders. All right, your dream has come true. Today, I'll take care of you for a day. I'll bring you out to eat and buy, how about that? Bai Lan pretended to be bashful as she leaned against Gu Mingming's shoulder, pinching her throat as she said, All right, the two of them immediately had goosebumps. They rubbed their shoulders, smiled, and walked into the mall arm in arm. They really began to buy all kinds of things. If it was in the past, Gu Mingming might not have been able to swipe Snake's card like that. But now, although they were not protected by modern marriage laws, but a man who could die twice for her. He was willing to give his life to her. How could he not be willing to spend money? Moreover, it was just an illusion. Why not to satisfy herself and Bai Lan? From skincare products to clothes, shoes, hats and handbags, Gu Mingming and Bai Lan only stopped when they could no longer carry everything. Meanwhile, at the other end of the basketball court, Snake's face brightened up as the spending records kept appearing on his phone. Gushing. Gu. You. Gu. Ayata Gu. Gu. Tian. I. Lan. I. Bai Lan and Tu. Looking at the things she and Bai Lan were carrying, Gu Mingming pretended to be tired and said, There are too many things, we can't carry them all. Bai. Lan. King Bai? Bai Lan nodded in deep agreement. Lan. But. Lan. But. Yes, but I bought too many things, so I can't carry them all. Can you come and pick us up? Chapter 1658. We are at Zhuazhan. Snake answered directly. How did you know? Gu Mingming asked in confusion. Snake smiled and answered. There's a note on the text message about the place of consumption. Gu Mingming was at a loss for words. She smiled and said, All right, we will wait for you at the entrance. Snake responded, then left some instructions to Zhang Jincheng before driving off. On the way back, Gu Mingming got more nervous the closer they got to the basketball arena. She was so nervous that she did not dare to look at Bai Lan's eyes. She did not know if it was a psychological effect, but Gu Mingming's entire body tensed up. She laughed self-deprecatingly in her heart. Bai Lan was being proposed to. Why was she so nervous? Finally, the car stopped at the entrance of the basketball arena. The lights in the arena were switched off and it was pitch black. Bailan asked, "What are we doing here?" Gu Mingming was so nervous that she kept stuttering. She looked at Snake helplessly and said, Yes, what are we doing here?" Snake reached out a hand and stroked Gu Mingming's little head with a gentle smile. "Just now, Zhang Jincheng called me and said that he had left the anti-inflammatory medicine in the changing room when he came to settle the paperwork to leave the team. He asked Bailan to help him get it, and he will go to Bailan's place to get it tomorrow." Bailan replied with with a look of disdain. She then got off the car and said to Gu Mingming, "Then you two wait here for me. We have too many things, you have to send me back to the dormitory." Gu Mingming gave an okay sign and watched as Bailan entered the basketball arena. After Bailan entered the basketball arena, Gu Mingming stretched her neck to look inside. Her two little hands clutched Snake's arm tightly. After waiting for a long time, there was no reaction from inside. Gu Mingming became a little anxious. "Why is there no movement?" Snake scanned the arena and said, "That's right, why is there no movement? There couldn't have been any mistakes, right?" Gu Mingming's face was full of worry. "No, this is an important day for Bailan. Let's go in and take a look. We cannot let this matter go wrong." "All right." Snake smiled indulgently and allowed Gu Mingming to pull him down the car and walk towards the basketball court. Gu Mingming was so focused on Bailan that she did not notice that the moment they alighted, Snake held on to her tightly. It looked like he was being pulled by her, but behind her, he was looking at her with such a gentle and loving gaze. The lights in the basketball court were not switched on, but it was pitch black inside. Gu Mingming should have been able to see clearly with her night vision, but the moment she stepped into the basketball court, her eyes were blindfolded by Snake. "What are you doing?" Gu Mingming did not struggle and just asked curiously. Snake nudged Gu Mingming inside and said, "Be good, wait a while." Gu Mingming felt that it was strange, but her heart was thumping nonstop. Vaguely, Gu Mingming seemed to understand something. "Snake." Gu Mingming sounded like she was about to cry as she called out Snake's name. Snake slowly released Gu Mingming's eyes. At the same time, with a click of the switch, the entire basketball court was brightly lit as if it was daytime. The words "Gu Mingming, I love you" were written on the balloon castle. Chapter 1659. Gu Mingming was so touched that she wanted to cry, and in fact she was already crying. "What are you doing?" Gu Mingming was laughing and crying at the same time. She did not know what to say. After Snake returned, they became partners not long after. His mark was already on her heart. Why was he still proposing now? She was already married to him. How could she still say no now? Snake just knelt there without moving, looking up and smiling without a hint of impatience. He just replied gently, "How can I allow you to be envious of other women because of other men? I cannot allow you to feel aggrieved or regretful, not even the slightest bit." "But didn't you say you would only propose once?" Gu Mingming was so touched that her tears started to fall, but she forgot to let Snake stand up. Snake just knelt there, still smiling. His eyes were filled with deep emotions. "In front of you, I never have any principles or bottom line. For you, I can do anything. What's the big deal about overthrowing myself?" Gu Mingming wanted to say something, but Bailan could not stand it anymore. She pushed her lightly from behind and said, "Are you just going to let him kneel like this?" Gu Mingming then reacted, "Hurry and get up. You haven't agreed to my proposal. How can I get up?" Snake was still smiling. His gaze towards Gu Mingming was as gentle as water and as deep as the ocean. "Say yes. Say yes. Say yes." Everyone present started to jeer, because in their eyes, Snake and Gu Mingming were just a couple who had confirmed their relationship for a few months. Gu Mingming nodded her head forcefully, then smiled and pulled Snake up. Snake took the opportunity to pull Gu Mingming into his arms. He kissed her forehead and said, "In 3 lifetimes, you are the only one I have knelt to. Gu Mingming, you have the right to be arrogant." Gu Mingming buried her face in Snake's arms. She knew that what he said about 3 lifetimes was not just an adjective. Following this hug, The relatives and friends who came to witness this happy moment all pulled the ribbons. Colorful ribbons and colorful pieces of paper fell from the sky. Blessings filled the surroundings. Partners. She had 3. But this was the first time she experienced a real proposal. Gu Mingming never knew that even though she had given birth to a few children, her maiden heart was still budding. And Snake was the one who revived her maiden heart. Gu Mingming looked up at Snake's eyes and said gently, "Akel, thank you." Snake kissed Gu Mingming's eyes and said, "What are you thanking me for? This is what I should give you. We'll be on holiday next week. Let's go back to F country to get our marriage certificate and have our honeymoon." Huh. Gu Mingming was taken aback. "What? You just agreed to my proposal, and now you're going back on your word?" No. Gu Mingming was in a difficult position. She glanced at Elvis, Leah and Gregory from the corner of her eyes. Snake bit Gu Mingming's ear lightly and said, "Silly girl, do you really not know how much your males love you?" Gu Mingming looked at the 3 of them standing at the side in confusion. She then looked back at Snake's face. Snake kissed her on the lips and said, "Your men will never bear for you to suffer in any way." What he meant was that Elvis and the other 2 had agreed to Snake's actions today. Chapter 1660. You will experience such a scene 2 or 3 more times. But today you are mine. Snake used a voice that only the 2 of them could hear to whisper into Gu Mingming's ear, before kissing her deeply on the lips. After a round of hubbub, Gu Mingming pushed Snake with a blushing face, before turning to look at Bailan. Narrowing her eyes, she said, "Great, you are actually in cahoots with them?" Bailan raised her hands in surrender, saying, "I am a traitor, I am guilty." So what Zhang Jincheng proposing was all a ruse. Today, I am not the one pestering you, you are the one pestering me. Gu Mingming was really speechless. To think that she was so good at acting, how could she not see that she had been tricked by Bailan? Bailan laughed heartily, stretching out her left hand and shaking her fingers. Zhang Jincheng proposed to me last week in the hospital. Today, in order to lie to you, I didn't even dare to wear an engagement ring. Bailan, your engagement is such a big event. How could you not call me? Gu Mingming pounced on Bailan relentlessly, not hitting her but just tickling her. Bailan was most ticklish, so she could only beg for mercy, saying, "I was wrong, I was really wrong. Ha ha ha, girl, forgive me, ha ha ha. I am doing this for my future husband's future." What future? Gu Mingming's hand stopped moving, looking at Bailan in confusion. Bailan held onto Zhang Jincheng's arm, leaning against his shoulder like a little bird, saying, "Zhang Jincheng took over as the CEO of the MO Group 3 days ago, and now your fiancé Snake is my fiancé's boss. Sorry, for the sake of our family's future happiness, I can only shamelessly betray my friend for my own glory." "You still dare to act so righteously," Gu Mingming said, but she was smiling. "Of course I'm righteous." Bailan laughed. "Just based on our relationship, I can act righteously in front of you for the rest of my life. Anyway, you can't bear to not acknowledge me. You win." Gu Mingming swung her arm in the end, before leaning back into Snake's arms. That night, the basketball stadium was very lively. Her close friends, men and women, were all drunk together. Later, they said that they were so drunk that they saw a fox and a wolf jumping up and down in the basketball court, making a fool of themselves. A gigantic bird that he had never seen before was flying around the basketball court. There seemed to be a drunk girl on its back, singing at the top of her lungs. And the amazing thing was that even though they were out of tune, they could still sing together. After waking up, everyone showed great interest in this dream. The probability of everyone having the same dream was really not high, so everyone tried to go back and check the surveillance to see what exactly happened that night that caused them to have the same hallucination. It was a pity that the surveillance footage was suddenly cut off after Gu Mingming agreed to Snake's proposal. It was said that the fuse of the camera was blown. Meanwhile, in the villa on the other side, Gu Mingming was standing in front of the television, pointing at a fox and a wolf in a drunken stupor, asking, "In the past, you two were not convinced when I said that your alcohol tolerance was bad. What about this time? Isn't this irrefutable evidence? Would he still drink in the future? Ha! Would he still drink? Elvis and Leah shook their heads obediently, indicating that they would never touch alcohol again. Then they looked at Snake at the same time. They clearly remembered that Snake also drank quite a lot, so why was he fine? Snake's lips curled up, looking at Elvis and Leah saying, "You two are still very weak." Aside from the topic, the first part of the story ended here. This part was mainly led by Snake, and there were also other spies planted in the middle. If the reaction of the story is good, and everyone likes it, I will consider the content of other people proposing to Gu Meng Meng. Chapter 1661. Although the kidnapping incident was over, and those hooligans who insisted that they saw demons were locked up in the mental hospital, there were always coincidences. For example, the scene that day was actually witnessed by a few homeless beggars. But their words did not carry much weight, and even if they said it, no one would believe them. But the hooligans' testimonies, the beggars' rumors and the scene that the students thought they saw when they were drunk on the day of the engagement, combined together, it gradually formed an exaggerated version of the story that even Gu Meng Meng herself found ridiculous. In order not to expose any more flaws, they could only complete the school transfer procedures and follow Snake back to F Country. F Country was Snake's home ground, and he had a strong family background as his backing. As for academics, naturally no one dared to seriously calculate Gu Meng Meng's academic points. Therefore, this ordinary student from a third-rate university in S City had transformed into a top student from a famous brand university in F Country. Gu Meng Meng sat on the small boat drifting with the current and held her chin. Looking at the males surrounding her, she sighed softly. Although in this era, Snake was Gu Meng Meng's legitimate fiancé, the beast world had its own rules. No matter how strong the other partners were, the position of the first partner could not be violated. So outside of Snake's home, Gu Meng Meng would always sit in Elvis's arms. What's wrong? Elvis's gaze was always concerned about the little person in his arms. No matter how different this world was from the beast world, in his eyes, it was just the same mountains and rivers. Only the one in his arms was a thousand-faced beauty that he could not get enough of. Gu Meng Meng looked up at Elvis and did not say a word before lowering her head again. If you don't like this place, can we go to other countries to play? Anyway, the problem of their identities has already been resolved. We can go anywhere. The current Snake was no longer the cold Snake King with low EQ. In front of Gu Meng Meng, both his EQ and EQ were always online. Gu Meng Meng shook her head and still did not say a word. Leah laughed softly and transformed his large tail to sit beside Gu Meng Meng. Gu Meng Meng instinctively hugged his tail, but her eyes widened. She instinctively lowered her voice and said, "Are you crazy? We are outside. What if someone sees us? Take it back, take it back." Leah placed his hands on Gu Meng Meng's shoulders and squinted his long and narrow eyes. His faint smile had a unique charm to it as he whispered into Gu Meng Meng's ear. "How can I let you go when you're hugging me so tightly? Meng Meng who says one thing and means another is so cute." Gu Meng Meng looked down at her own hands. Sigh. What a good-for-nothing. This furry fetish was her Achilles heel, and she could not change it. Just as he was about to let go, Leah added, "Don't worry, even if someone sees it, they would only think that you're wearing a fox tail as an accessory. I've seen it on the road. Many people hang a fox's tail on their bags. It's just that the ones they hang aren't as good as yours." As Leah spoke, he even used the tip of his tail to tickle Gu Meng Meng's skin. It was so ticklish that Gu Meng Meng giggled before he stopped. Gregory sat quietly at the side. His eyes were filled with deep affection, but he didn't say a word. Unless Gu Meng Meng took the initiative to call him, he had no right to speak in this family. Aside from the topic, "My babies, sorry for the long wait. The editor informed us that we can continue updating the chapter at the last minute. Previously, everyone had been saying that Susu was biased toward Snake and only updated his marriage proposals, not the other three. So now that Susu had the chance, she came to present the marriage proposals one by one. Chapter 1662. Only when Gu Mengmeng smiled did the atmosphere on the boat lighten up. After all, every time she sighed, the four males would feel their hearts wrench. Leah was naturally a great hero, because no matter if it was in the beast world or the present world, he was always the one who knew how to make Gu Mengmeng happy. The current snake also knew how to tease Gu Mengmeng, but he did not have a tail like Leah. He really wanted to kill him. Previously in the Snake King Valley, this fellow used his tail to make fun of him. Now it was like this again. But what else could he do? That tail was what Tuming liked. Leah did not care about Snake's inner thoughts. He struck while the iron was hot and asked, Mengmeng, tell me, why are you sighing? Did someone make you unhappy? Or did you think of something unpleasant? If you say it, Daddy Leah will settle it for you. Gu Mengmeng poked Lee's forehead, causing his head to tilt backwards. Then, she flung Lee's tail away and shrunk into Elvis's arms, hugging him tightly and saying, I want to return to the beast world. Once she said those words, the males looked at each other for a while. If it was something else, they could do it for her. But Gu Mengmeng was the previous beast deity, the messenger of the beast deity. Her identity could never appear in the beast world again. It was not that these beast kings were unwilling to hide their identities with her, but the doors of time and space that belonged to her had already closed and disappeared, never to reappear again. Gu Mengmeng buried her face in Elvis's chest, ignoring the males who were racking their brains to think of a solution. She just continued, I like the rules in the beast world. There are no sluts who stare at other males day in and day out. The moment he said that, the other three turned to look at Elvis in unison. Elvis's face darkened. I don't know her, nor did I speak to her. She can't be slut on me. Gu Mengmeng lowered her head, harumphed and did not reply, but her arms around Elvis's waist tightened. Elvis was also helpless. Before boarding the boat, she suddenly said she wanted to eat ice cream. So Elvis crossed the small square in front of the pier to buy it for her. Unexpectedly, when he came back, a woman in a revealing and strange outfit suddenly stuffed a note into his pocket. He held the ice cream with both hands and couldn't push her away. The woman wanted more and wanted to kiss him. Elvis could not accept any females other than Gu Mengmeng getting close to him. Especially since he was a wolf beast and was especially sensitive to smells. The smell on that female almost made him choke to death. Therefore, without thinking, he raised his leg and kicked the woman, sending her flying. No matter what others were saying, Elvis returned to Gu Mengmeng's side without turning back. In the end, Gu Mengmeng did not even want to eat the ice cream. She pounced into his arms and tore out the note from his pocket. She threw it into the bin with the ice cream and hung it on his body. He was the one who hugged her every day, so he didn't think too much about it. Seeing that she was in a bad mood, he didn't dare to speak casually, afraid that he would say something wrong and make her even more unhappy. Now that she opened her mouth, he finally understood that his Xiaoming was jealous. Actually, he was quite happy, because if she was jealous, it meant that she cared about him. You're tuning in to the Echoes of the Heart YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.